Welcome and thank you for waiting. All participants will remain in listen-only mode for the duration of today's webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the session over to your host from the U.S. Census Bureau, Faith. Faith, you may begin.
Thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar event, Finding Complex Geographies in data.census.gov. My name is Faith Whittington, and I will be your host for today's event. Our presenter will show you essential search and filtering techniques to help you find economic data on the Census Bureau's main data platform, data.census.gov. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank my Census Bureau colleagues for joining me today and helping to support our speaker. I'll turn things over to our presenter in just a moment, but first I have a few housekeeping items to share. I would like to encourage you all to make use of the question and answer panel in WebEx to submit questions throughout this presentation. That is located along the right side of your WebEx screen. If you cannot see it, you may need to click the three dots at the bottom right to pull it up. We have a team of panelists joining us today, ready to answer questions. So questions you may have related to this topic. If you have questions related to searching for geographies on data.census.gov, please submit it through the Q&A panel. We have panelists here to answer some of your questions today. At the end, we will be able to go over some of those questions submitted through the Q&A panel. A quick note, on the question and answer session, we will focus on the platform, data.census.gov. We will only address questions on geography, and we will not be able to go in depth to address questions on the topic of economic data, the collection process, methodology, or other census products. Finally, we are recording this webinar today, and all of the materials for the training will be available through the Census Academy website. Welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker, Noemi Mendez. Welcome, Noemi.
Thank you, Faith. Welcome, everyone, to Finding Complex Geographies in data.census.gov. My name is Noemi Mendez. I'm with the Center for Enterprise Dissemination, the Dissemination Outreach Branch here at the U.S. Census Bureau. So to go over the outline for this afternoon, we're going to touch upon geographic entities versus summary levels within other geographies, geographic components such as urban rural, and then follow up with tips and tricks for some geographies such as economic places, state legislative districts, voting districts, tribal areas, remainders, and then time for questions, if time allows us. So first, what data is available on data.census.gov? This is a small list compared to the breadth of data that the Census Bureau has. Located in our FAQ and resources page, this is a great resource. Also, we're also highlighting other popular data sets and how to access them. Okay, so let's move into our topic. So let's talk about geographic entities versus summary levels. So let's start with geographic entities. These are found under the All Geographies section here, and we've kind of pointed out how to find that on the site. So geographic entities are the areas or boundaries that are used for collecting and organizing data. When choosing the geographic entities option, you will see all the geographies that are available on data.census.gov. Next, we have summary levels. Summary levels specify the content and the hierarchical relationships of the geographic entities so that data can be tabulated. For instance, some summary levels, they have 3-digit codes that designate different geographic levels. These are not the same as our FIPS codes, and some are only available for specific censuses and surveys. Okay, so data.census.gov utilizes these summary levels so you can get a specific piece of geography. When you're choosing your geography in data.census.gov, you're choosing for which summary level you'd like to use. For example, when you choose Madison County, Indiana in data.census.gov, you're choosing to work with summary level 050 state county. So here we see the differences between geographic entities and summary levels. Geographic entities are a catalog of all the primary geographies that are available on data.census.gov. There are a couple of keys to understanding summary levels. Summary levels specify the content and the hierarchical relationships of the geographic entities so that the data can be tabulated. Okay? So first, the last geography listed in the summary level is the one that you will get data for. And you need to know all of the preceding geography in order to get the correct geographic unit. Okay, so let's move on to geographic entities and summary levels again. So here is an example of how geographic entities differ from summary levels. Okay, so on the left, you see the geography for the American Indian, Alaska Native area, Hawaiian homeland. I like to think of this as the overall umbrella of these geographies. On the right, we see the geography broken down into hierarchies. So with summary levels, you can drill down to search for the specific hierarchy that you want. So again, here are some snapshots telling us about the different portions for the AIAN, Alaska Native, Hawaiian, HHL area. So here on top, we have the primary summary level for the entire American Indian areas, Alaska Native areas, Hawaiian homeland areas. So as you drill down, you see it starts on the summary levels from 251 to 294, all the different types of summary levels where you can get geography for. So question, how much of the population of Kansas City, Missouri falls within each of the counties? So here we have an example of how a geography can span multiple geographies. Here we see that Kansas City crosses 4 different counties, and we want to see how much of the Kansas City population is in each county. Summary levels can be helpful in trying to find data on the portions of these geographies. Okay. Summary level 155, county within place. Here are the steps to use summary levels to find a county within a place. We have all geographies, and we select summary levels at the top. We're going to use summary level 155, state, place, and county. You select your state, which in this case is Missouri, then your place, which is Kansas City, Missouri, and next you'll select all of the individual parts. Then you select your table, for example, this B01001, which is sex by age, and then you can click on maps. Okay, now let's learn about within other geographies. So within other geographies allows you to access additional collections of geographies. While you're likely already familiar with some collections of geographies, such as all states in the United States or all places within a state, there are other collections of geographies that are available to you that you may not be aware of. When you go into this site and look in the geographies panel, you'll sometimes see a button that says within other geographies, which we have highlighted here. This button is what you'll use to access those other collections of geographies. Okay. Let's talk about neatly nested versus non-neatly nested. Okay. Neatly nested means that they're fully contained. Not neatly nested are fully or partially contained. On the left, we can see how some census geographies can neatly nest within other geographies. For example, all 5-digit zip code tabulation areas within the United States, all counties within South Dakota, all block groups within Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. On the right, we have some geographies that do not nest neatly. You can access these types of geographies from the Within Other Geographies option in data.census.gov. Some examples are all 5-digit zip code tabulation areas fully or partially within Iowa, all places fully, partially within Madison County, Alabama, all metropolitan, micropolitan statistical areas fully or partially within Ohio. Note, when you see fully or partially, it means that some of the geographies may cross boundaries. Okay, so here's an example that I'm going to do right now. We're going to look for all the ZICTAs that are fully or partially within Genesee County. Okay, so I'm going to start off at data.census.gov. I'm going to go to advanced search. Here under filters, I'm going to look for zip code tabulation area and then select my state, which is New York. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the within other geographies, and you see the choices available here. I'm going to select county. And for my county, I'm looking for Genesee County. And select it. Then from here, I'm going to select all 5-digit zip code tabulation areas, fully, partially within Genesee County, New York. I want to make sure my filters has my information here, okay? Then I'm going to go ahead and click on my map. So here we have our map. This is Genesee County, and these are all the ZICTAs that are fully, partially within Genesee County. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the boundaries for the county so you can see the county boundaries and the pieces that are within it and some parts that are out of it. Okay, let's talk about tips to determine full or partial geographic areas. Just one last thing on this topic before we move on. I just mentioned that when a label says that something is fully or partially within another geography, it means that it's either fully contained within the larger geography or only parts of it overlaps with the larger geography. The important thing to remember about this is that when you get data for these geographies, you're getting data for the entire geography. As an example, I'm looking for data for all the American Indian areas that are fully or partially within Arizona. That means that some of the areas may be completely within Arizona and some may be partially in Arizona, but cross over into other states. An example of the latter is the Navajo Nation Reservation and off-reservation trust land that crosses Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. But despite the fact that it crosses 3 different states, when I use this option for the areas that are fully or partially within Arizona, I will be getting data for the entire Navajo Nation Reservation and off-reservation trust land. This is different from the part concept that we saw in our earlier example when we looked at Kansas City, which crosses 4 different counties. In that example, using summary level 155, we got data on the parts of Kansas City that crossed into each of the counties. Using the part means that we got data for the part of Kansas City that overlapped with Clay County and the parts of Kansas City that overlapped Jackson County and so on. Now, to put this part concept into terms with our Navajo Nation Reservation and off-reservation trust land example, if we use summary level 260, we will get data on just a part of the reservation and off-reservation trust land that overlaps with Arizona. Okay, let's move on to geographic components. Okay. The Census Bureau defines a geographic component as a subset of a given type of geographic entity based on certain geographic or population characteristics. In layman's terms, it basically means that they are the alternatives for tabulating data. Okay, so 2 of the geographic components that we see come up more often are looking for data for populations that live in urban and rural areas. But there are all types of geographic components available, over 100 in fact. Some look at metropolitan and micropolitan statistical areas. Others look at American Indian reservation and trust lands and Hawaiian homelands. While there are a lot of geographic components, though, they are only available with the US and states within data.census.gov. If this seems like this might be something you can use, we recommend that you take a look at the list to get familiar with what's available. Okay, so let's learn about urban-rural designations. The Census Bureau urban areas represent densely developed territory and encompass residential, commercial, and other non-residential urban land uses. Census Bureau delineates urban areas after each decennial census by applying specified criteria to decennial census and other data. Rural encompasses all the population, housing, and territory not included in an urban area, the balance. So for more information on urban rural, we've included this URL below. So you can see that a geography doesn't have to be all urban or all rural. A good example is Massachusetts. You can see the urban parts in blue, while the rural parts are still gray. Okay, so let's go ahead and do an example of this urban rural. Advanced search. Then I'm going to click on state. Now here, I'm going to make sure to select show geographic components. I'm going to do a search for urban. Excuse me. I'm going to scroll down till I find Pennsylvania. Okay, here's Pennsylvania urban. So I want to make sure I select that and it goes to my filters. Next, I'm going to type in rural. And I'm going to look for Pennsylvania rural. And select it. I'm going to add a table. I'm going to add table B01001 and hit my spyglass here. And then go ahead and open up the table. Okay. Here you can see the urban and rural components for Pennsylvania. Using this table B0101 sex by age, it's the 2023 ACS one-year estimate table. Okay, let's move into tips and tricks. So here's some things to keep in mind when working with census geographies. Some geographies can be redefined with each decennial census, such as CDPs, census designated places, tracts, block groups, and blocks. Names are reused across the country, sometimes even within the same state or same county. Always confirm that the geographies that you are using cover what you expect that they should cover. So these are the next geographies that I'm going to be highlighting in the rest of our program. So I just wanted to give you some information on that. Okay, let's go into tips and tricks for economic places. Okay, the economic census produces data for many levels of geography. Economic places are specifically created for tabulating data from the economic census and surveys. They highlight areas with concentrated economic activity. Economic places also cover the island areas, including counties in the American Samoa and towns in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Economic places include census-designated places, CDPs, incorporated places, minor civil divisions, MCDs, counties, and the balance of counties. And there's the URL to learn more about the economic census. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of how to search for the economic places in Ohio. Go back to our advanced search. Let's go to all geographies. Search for economic place. Our state is Ohio. Here I want all economic places in Ohio. And then go to our map. So these are all the economic geography, the economic places for the state of Ohio. Now, tips and tricks for state legislative districts. State legislative districts, or SLDs, are the specific areas within a state that elect representatives to the state legislature. They include both the upper chamber, usually the Senate, and the lower chamber, usually the House or the Assembly. Nebraska is an exception, with a unicameral legislature, which is represented as an upper chamber entity. District of Columbia is also considered to have a single council, which is represented as an upper chamber entity. The Census Bureau is responsible for collecting and maintaining data on state legislative districts. Plan updates are collected every 2 years, and typically, new products are generated only for state legislative districts with changes. So here's an example of how to get the state legislative districts. Here's the lower ones for Massachusetts, and then the upper chamber. But I'll go ahead and give a demonstration of that as well. Reset myself. Okay. Advanced search. We're going to go down to all geographies. We're going to look at state legislative district. Okay. Let's do the lower chamber first. It's going to ask us for our state. We're going to look at Massachusetts. Then I'm going to select all state legislative districts, lower chamber within Massachusetts. And go to our map. I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, so here are the lower districts. Let's go ahead and map our upper districts. Back to state legislative districts. But this time we want the upper chamber. Back to Massachusetts. Then all state legislative districts, upper chamber within Massachusetts. And here's our map. Again, lower and upper. Okay, let's talk about tips and tricks for voting districts. A voting district, or VTD, is a generic term adopted by the Census Bureau to include the wide variety of small polling areas such as election districts, precincts, or wards that state and local governments create for the purpose of administering elections. It's the smallest unit of election administration, essentially defining who gets to go to a particular polling place to cast their ballot. The size and scope of voting districts can vary greatly. And this is only available with the decennial census redistricting data, Public Law 94-171. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. All geographies. We're going to go down to voting district. Voting district. Then our state, we're going to look at Delaware. And I want to look at all voting districts within Delaware. It's a little bit of a snafu right now, but I'm going to go ahead and select this decennial table P1 race. And let's zoom into Delaware. It may take a little bit of a while to render, so let's see what happens. Let's see if we can bring them up another way. Voting district. Okay. Here we can see all the voting districts. I just went ahead and used our layer button. Let's move on. Okay, there's our map right there. Let's talk about tips and tricks for American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian areas. Okay. So there are both legal and statistical areas for which the Census Bureau provides data. Legal entities consist of federally recognized American Indian reservation and off-reservation trust land areas, tribal subdivisions that can divide these entities, state-recognized American Indian reservations, Alaska Native regional corporations, Hawaiian homelands, and New Mexico pueblos. For our statistical entities, we have Alaska Native village statistical areas, Oklahoma tribal statistical areas, tribal designated statistical areas, and state designated tribal statistical areas. For more information on these, we've included a URL. We've also included the hierarchy of the American Indian, Alaska Native, Hawaiian homeland. So you can look at the hierarchy for this as well. Okay, let's go ahead and select these areas. So we go under all geographies. For instance, we're going to use American Indian, Alaska Native, Hawaiian homeland, and then you can select individual ones. You can see there's a few choices here. I'm going to select this one. And then I'm going to select all of them. And then we can go to our maps. We can start, as we start zooming in, you can see some of the different examples that we have. For instance, here, these are the state designated tribal statistical areas. You can tell by how they're named. Then we have in Oklahoma tribal statistical areas. In the Southwest, we have some reservations and pueblos. In Alaska, they have their own ones, starting with the Panhandle. You zoom in, you can see the names, the ANVSAs. And then finally, we can go down to Hawaii and see the Hawaiian homelands. Okay. I want to also talk about some of the areas you may be familiar with. So a popular census data tool that we have is called My Tribal Area, and some of you may already know about this tool. This tool provides ACS, or American Community Survey data, from data profile tables on different American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian areas. You can find the same data here in data.census.gov for those areas as well. One of the misconceptions we've seen is that sometimes users select these areas thinking that they're getting data on the American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian race groups. And unfortunately, unless a race group filter is also added to the search, that this isn't a correct assumption. So when you're looking for this type of data, you want to ask yourself whether you want the data for the geographic area, which would be the American Indian, Alaska Native, or the American Indian, Alaska Native, or Native Hawaiian areas, or if you want data for a race group. or in some cases, you may want both. For instance, here's an example where we are selecting the Fort Peck Indian Reservation and off-reservation trust land in Montana, and it's using the B02001 race table, okay? So you can see the information that's here. So when you just select the geographies, it is possible that the inhabitants here can be of any race. So here, we again have the Fort Peck Indian Reservation and off-reservation trust land in Montana. But when you add a race filter, you can now see the race data for the geography. So here you see all available tribes with this table. And now you can see the racial breakdowns for the people that live on that tribal reservation. You can see what the designations here, okay? Tips and tricks for American Indian Area tribal subdivisions. They're the legal administrative subdivisions of federally recognized American Indian reservations and off-reservation trust lands, or are statistical subdivisions of Oklahoma Tribal Statistical Areas, the OTSAs. These entities are internal units of self-government or administration that serve social, cultural, and/or economic purposes for the American Indians on the reservations, off-reservation trust lands, or OTSAs. They are described as additions, administrative areas, chapters, county districts, community districts, or segments. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this exercise. We're going to go back to advanced search. All geographies. American Indian Area Tribal Subdivision, remainder. We're going to look for the Navajo Nation Reservation and Trust, off-reservation trust land. Okay, so here it is. Now, Navajo Nation Reservation and off-reservation trust land, Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. And select this one again. Okay, so now we're just seeing the portion of the reservation that we selected. Okay, and you can see all the components of those as well. Okay, tips and tricks about remainders. So our last topic is going to be remainders. Okay, remainders are an example of a special geographic unit that the Census Bureau has created. Okay, so it allows users to obtain data for what's called the remainder of a geography, which is the area that's left over after specific portions of the larger geography are removed. Okay, so the Census Bureau has done the work for you. A very broad definition of a remainder, again, is that it's a portion of this left over after the other parts have been removed. As an example, we're going to look at this summary level 70. To help understand what this particularly summary level provides, we're going to look at Topaz Lake CDP, which is a county subdivision in Douglas County, Nevada. So let's go into data.census.gov so I can show you how to find this. Okay, this is what we're going to be doing. So we're going to go to advanced search. After we do that, we're going to select all geographies, and then we're going to select on our summary level. We want summary level 70. Okay, state, county, county subdivision, place remainder. We're going to look in Nevada. 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 and then Douglas County. Okay, so now that we've drilled down, okay, now that we drilled down, we're going to see that we have 4 options available for selection here. So the first 3 here are the places that are found. So we have Topaz, we have, Double Spring CDP, Topaz Lake CCD, Douglas County, Nevada, Topaz Lake CDP, Topaz Lake CCD, Douglas County, Nevada, and then Topaz Ranch Estates, Topaz Lake CDP in Douglas County, Nevada. So we're going to go back to my table. And I'm going to select. Excuse me. Just want to make sure I went to the Okay, I'm going to start this over. Something happened. I apologize. Advanced search, all geographies, summary level, 70. Okay, Nevada. Douglas County, Topaz Lake CDP. Okay, here we go. So let's go ahead and select the top 3, the Double Spring CDP, the Topaz Lake CDP, and the Topaz Ranch Estates CDP. So let's go to our map. And here we can see that they're all selected, okay? So let's talk about the 4th option, which is the remainder of the Topaz Lake CDP. So when you select this option, if we go ahead and select the option, we can see that we can get data for the entire portion of Topaz Lake County subdivision that excludes the CDPs here, okay? This is something that we definitely get questions on here, as users want to show, they want to know about the population that aren't living in one of the places, right? And since county subdivisions provide full coverage of the area, you can use this summary level to ensure that you get the data for the entire county subdivision or the entire county if you wanted to use multiple county subdivisions. So what's especially nice about this summary level is that it's available with both the American Community Survey and the decennial census. So basically everything that's not part of this CDP is in sense the remainder. So it's not highlighted. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about resources for learning more. As I mentioned before, your questions and comments are extremely important to us because they help guide us with the work that we still need to do. So if you have anything that you'd like to share with us or have any questions about the Census API, data.census.gov, or microdata access, you can email our branch at census.data@census.gov. In addition, be sure to check out our resources page where you'll find more information on the site and guidance for using it. Also, we are always trying to hear feedback from people who use data.census.gov. So if you would be interested in chatting with us at another time to give us feedback, please send us an email and we can set up a time to talk. And here are some links to our resources here as well. Okay. So who can I contact to provide feedback? Again, check us out at data.census.gov and provide comments to census.data@census.gov. So how can I get hands-on practice? So we're asking you to please complete the webinar evaluation that'll be up shortly. Your feedback's going to help us feedback helps us to make useful to you. Thank you again for joining us. But before I go, let me backtrack. These are the workshops that we do monthly on these specific topics, okay? So we have geography ones, mapping ones, and a few for microdata or API. If you want to learn more about the American Community Survey, we have a finding one and we have an advanced one. So to sign up for those workshops, click on the URL and then you can go ahead and select your date. To get email updates from us and to sign up for our emails, you can use this link here that'll take you to GovDelivery. You can choose your updates that you'd like to go ahead. You can also use our QR code. And here's an example of one of our newsletters that gives you what's new, what's coming up, anything that's been done to the site. Before we leave, I do want to mention we're looking for volunteers for our data.census.gov usability testing. So we're conducting research to improve data.census.gov, the U.S. Census Bureau's dissemination platform. If you know anyone else who'd be interested in participating in the study, please share the survey link with them. We'd like to talk to people who meet either of the following criteria. Use data from data.census.gov or other statistical sites, such as our demographic economic data, for research or decision making, or have experience using and analyzing data and experience working with or manipulating data sets. If you are eligible for the study, we will email you to schedule a time for an interview. The interview will last approximately 60 minutes and will take place virtually using Microsoft Teams to video conference with data.gov staff. And then again, feel free to contact us at ced.cedsi.usability.list@census.gov for further information. And then thank you for your interest in participating. I want to also give a shout out to our data dissemination and training staff. So these are data experts that can come to you and they can give you some free training. We also create these data gems on our website, which is these short how-to videos, which are a great way to increase your knowledge of census data. You can get access again to our courses. You'll learn at your own pace with some video tutorials designed for different skill levels, and always interact with instructors via webinars. So learn about our data tools while attending these live virtual classes. And to contact them, you can go to censusaskdata@census.gov, or here's the phone number to call them. They're wonderful staff. Post-webinar, there's going to be a webinar evaluation, okay, which will automatically open in your browser when exiting WebEx. So please take some time to evaluate today's webinar. We would appreciate it. Okay. To contact us for media, here's the information for our public information office. And then for the public, you can contact us a few ways. Again, questions, feedback at census.data@census.gov. Any questions, if you have a question about a geography and can't find something, you can always email us. And then for any training request, email us at ced.cedsi.outreach@census.gov. And that's what I have for this afternoon. So Anthony, you can take it away.
All right, well, that concludes today's webinar. You may disconnect at this time. Have a good afternoon, everyone.